to see how all of this goes, man. This is fascinating to me because we're looking at perhaps a reckoning in the Big Ten with Maryland and Mike Locksley figuring this thing out. Talia, y'all know me in names. Tagovailoa. Sometimes I say Talia. Sometimes I say Taulia. I think it's Taulia Tagovailoa. But, with Raheem Jarrett out there, dog, you know what you're getting. You know what it is. They're also able to run the ball with Jake Funk. I didn't know that they would be this good running the football. And that was also a shock to me, and they're playing a little bit of defense. A lot of that is fun. So, let me see. What do we got in the chat? We have in the chat Oklahoma Sooners in the S&P ranking. Oklahoma is number 11. Okay. They ought to move up in that after this week. Clemson is lucky because they got the bye week before, but not so lucky this week. So they could have 2 week straight losses. What about Georgia? Yeah. Let me see if we got any good questions in here before we close out this stream. Doc Winston O'Boogie. Doc, go back and watch the first part of this to explain some things that are going on with the channel. I think that we're gonna experiment with. We're gonna see what that looks like. We're gonna see if we can't make this thing pop just a little bit different, change the way that we do, I don't know, some stuff. Let me see. This says that we have been streaming for 81 seconds. That doesn't make much sense. I feel like we've been streaming for a very long time. That's weird. YouTube, what the hell are you doing? I'm telling you, YouTube is getting on my damn nerves with all of this. Because I'm looking at the chat and I'm going, yo, y'all just getting here? Because I basically just went through the top 25 rankings. Huh. Wild. All right. Well, let's go through and do some of the scoreboard stuff because I've liked doing the conference recaps. I did one for the Big Ten late last night after I got off the radio because I was trying to get something up for Sunday. And that's another reason why I think I'm just going to take a different tact about doing this stuff. So now let's just go through the group of 5. Let's go through the Power 5 and take a look at what happened during Week 10 to give us these rankings that I just took a look at. I wanted to take the timestamp with this, man, but now I'm just going to have to so that I can absolutely cut this up later for the folk that just want to see. The stream just started? Holy crap. Really? Wow. Oh, man. I've been talking for 20 minutes, guys. That's wild. Holy smokes. All right. Let's do it again. Let's call that a dry run. My goodness. I had no idea. I've been talking for 20 minutes. Oh my God. This is the reason why. This is why we need to do more of these, right? Because I've been literally talking for 20 minutes. I'm like, yo, man, I'm going to give the people the new hotness just as soon as the rankings drop at 1 Central. And y'all just imagine if I didn't check the chat. Imagine if I just looked down and I was like, all right, time to go. Yo, man, I am losing my mind over here. I have been so frazzled, and I am stretching the bandwidth on this, dog. All right, that's my bad. Let's take it from the top. Let's take it straight from the top. Ah! Oh, I'm so stupid. What are we doing? My goodness. All right, doggone. All right, let's do this again. Ooh, all right. Yeah. Number 1, Alabama at 6-0. They were ranked number 2 last week. I'm not going to be able to do this without laughing at myself the whole time. So there was lots of concern about Alabama being the number 2 last week with Clemson being number 1 because they looked like they were after going down 18 points to Boston College, right? They come back from that with DJ Uiagalelei, and he passes for over 340 yards. Travis Etienne has a great day catching the ball, but he was sorry running the ball by Travis Etienne's standards, right? Averaged 4.2 yards per rush. 14 rushes for like 84 yards. And then they go drop a game to Notre Dame, who we'll talk about in a second. But Alabama is able to use that bye week to move up to number 1 in the rankings. I picked Alabama to win the national championship back in January. I see no reason to come up off that pick right now, though the one team that does give them a little bit of trouble, I think, hypothetically, we'll get to. Number 2, Notre Dame, 7-0. Huge win for Clemson, 47-40 in double overtime. Ian Book put on a classic performance. Kyron Williams set the tone. 65 yards, first play from scrimmage. Absolutely outstanding for that man. Hand the ball to number 23, get out of his way. That offensive line at Notre Dame has been good for a couple of years. They're finally putting it together. Their identity this year has been so not what they have been in years past. They are a power running team that plays hard defense. Even as DJ Uiagalelei was out there just shredding, man. Over 400 yards passing. It's just his second start. 1-1 as a starter, though. Travis Etienne was getting stuffed. Like, that was what was most surprising. I don't think that there were enough folks talking about this. So I tried to bring this up on game night last night, ESPN Radio with Jeff Dickerson, as we basically were talking about that game off and on for about an hour and a half of the show. I did not ever see anybody do this to Travis Etienne ever before. And he had such a bad game. The fumble off of his hands. He tried to return one out of the end zone he probably should not have returned. He just does not look like himself. And this being his senior year, I always thought that he was the engine that made Clemson go. Like, Trevor Lawrence gets all the headlines, but without Travis Etienne in the backfield and able to run that ball at 7 yards per clip, it's a different football team. Cornell Powell, though, is emerging, coming on. Amari Rodgers is that dude. When Joseph or Ngata was able to play, he looked good, but it showed that Brent Venables did not have Tyler Davis at nose, Mike Jones at linebacker, or his captain, his quarterback at linebacker, and James Skalski. They did the best they could. Brian Brzee gets hurt a little bit later. Miles Murphy looked like he played a game, but Notre Dame absolutely, positively came out there and let everybody know what it was. Hope to see a rematch of these two in Charlotte. Notre Dame, you look good in the conference, baby. You look good. Ohio State ran roughshod over Rutgers. I did a Big Ten recap a little bit earlier on, so you go check that out. But Justin Fields, I think he threw 28 passes. 4 of them were incompletions, over 300 yards. Chris Olave is a dude. Garrett Wilson is a dude. They still got to shore up that secondary. That's going to really hurt them in the playoff, not in the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is trash. I mean, we'll get to that in a second, but you really want Kerry Combs to figure this thing out with his secondary, because that's what he coaches. That's who he is, right? And if they get that figured out, they're going to be tough in the college football playoff. But right now, I think they're ranked where they should be. That offense is good, and we've learned in 2020, offense wins football games. Clemson drops from number 1 to number 4. I'm fine with this, right? Because I think Clemson without those 3 starters in the front 7, and Clemson without Trevor Lawrence, and Clemson basically having an out-of-body experience with Travis Etienne the last couple of weeks, is still the 4th best team in the country. You add those teams, or add those players back to that team, they're competing for a college football playoff spot, though I do think there's a road here for a Cincy, or even not a BYU. You got to win a conference championship to get into the playoff. I'll talk about that in a bit. Texas A&M at number 5 after stomping a mud hole in South Carolina, walking it dry. They are 5-1, but their loss is to Alabama. You don't get to avenge that loss. You're in the SEC West. That sucks for you. You're looking at the Outback Bowl. Sorry about you, Jimbo Fisher. But you can make the argument that if you're doing a power rankings thing, Texas A&M is the second best team in the conference ahead of Florida because they beat Florida. So good luck for them, which is why I think Florida's ranked number 6 and Texas A&M is ranked number 5. Florida at 4-1, huge win in the world's largest outdoor social distancing cocktail party. I wanted it to be, it wasn't. But Kyle Trask, going to be at the Heisman ceremony, 474 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. He passed for the second most yardage in a single game in Florida history, behind Tim Tebow, which I did not think. I thought this was going to be like a Danny Werfel record. But Tim Tebow was allowed to throw the ball so much in the 2010 Sugar Bowl that he put up 482 yards passing. Steve Addazio was like, Timmy, sling it. And now we got Dan Mullen going, Kyle Trask, sling it to Kyle Pitts, who is unguardable. My goodness, he was working people over. And then Trayvon Grimes. They go big, they go fast, and they put up points on what I thought was the second best defense in all of college football. Georgia, figure it out. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Cincinnati at number 7, 6-0. And it's the way that they're 6-0, right? These aren't close games that Cincinnati's playing. They're beating people like they stole something. They're beating them like they tried to steal your grandmama's purse. Like, in the American, you're going to have to do that to get anybody's respect. You're going to have to run roughshod over your conference. But take a look at the points here. Texas A&M's get 12-23. Florida is getting 12-13. And Cincy's getting 12-08. So I don't want to hear anybody telling us that Cincinnati is not getting their due. That's a 15-point differential between number 5 and number 7. And Cincy is keeping pace with the second and third best teams in the SEC. That's love, right? It's also the reason why I'm going Luke Fickell, Marcus Freeman might take a look at that Michigan job if it becomes available. I know there are Ohio State fans. They're like, yo, dog, ain't no Ohio State man going to take that Michigan job. You mean like Bo Schembechler? Now, I made this point a little bit early on. Bo Schembechler thought of himself as a Michigan man. So much so that he said that about Steve Fisher, right? Michigan man coached Michigan when Steve Fisher decided to coach San Diego State. But Bo Schembechler was an assistant for Woody Hayes. Okay? All right? Luke Fickell, assistant for Urban Meyer. Also shepherded him through what I thought was a really difficult year to get Urban Meyer to that job and to get them to 12-0 in a bowl ban season. I need to do like an upload about that, video essay about that, because that's a fascinating season to me. But if you got Luke Fickell and Marcus Freeman to go to Michigan if the job became available, you get a hard-nosed coach, you get a hard-nosed defense, and you get to reshape your image as tough and running the football at a time when Ohio State is at an all-time high for how good they have been at this thing called college football. Just give it some thought. Brigham Young, number 8, 8-0. They're not going to make the playoff. Their schedule sucks, okay? They're not probably going to make it to a New Year's Six Bowl because you have to get invited to that. And there are usually bowl tie-ins to that, the American is going to be like, no. One, if Cincy doesn't make the playoff, they're getting that spot. And if you got another spot that's open, it's going to go to a Sun Belt team because they play in a conference and they have demonstrated that they are perhaps the 4th best conference among the 10. Walk that out in a little bit. Miami at number 9, their only losses to Clemson. They beat NC State 44-41. Outstanding game for De'Aaron King. Texas, if you're looking to move off of Tom Herman, maybe give Rhett Lashley a look. I'm saying what he's been able to do at SMU, what he's been able to do at Miami, coming off the Malzahn tree, Springdale, Arkansas. He's familiar with Texas. I think he's doing a great job with Miami, and Miami has exceeded my expectations already. It's a very good football team. Just happened to get housed by the 4th best football team in the country, according to these rankings. It's a good football team. Indiana jumping in here at number 10, 3-0. Wins against Penn State, who ain't very good. 0-3 for the first time since 2001. Yikes. Win against Rutgers, who isn't the worst team in the Big Ten anymore. Think about that for a second, right? And then a real program-changing win against Michigan. First time they beat Michigan since 1987. I was born in 1987. All right, Jim Harbaugh was a rookie quarterback with the Chicago Bears, 1987. Historic for Tom Allen, Michael Penix Jr., and Mr. Elias D'Angelo Filior, a.k.a. WAP. They're getting it in. I like it. Number 11, Oregon. They get 1-0 start, beating up on Stanford. They ought to represent the Pac-12 North. I mean, I don't think the Washington's going to give them much of a run for their money. We'll see. Georgia falls from number 5 to number 12. Now, 2 losses, that's what happens, but their losses are to number 1 Alabama and number 6 Florida. 2 of the best offenses in college football, 2 of the best offenses that they're going to face all year. Kirby, figure it out at quarterback, dog, because even if JT Daniels is the 3rd best quarterback on that depth chart, which I doubt, you need to show him to us because we're going to continue to roast you until you do. That's a 5-star quarterback who won a national championship in high school at Mater Dei, who was at USC and was actually slinging it. Was he slinging it like Keaton Slovis slung it last year? No. Did Keaton Slovis run him off? Yes. But let's not act like Stetson Bennett is a better quarterback than Keaton Slovis. Now, you put Dwan Mathis in the game, and I thought that changed the way that Georgia played football. But why the hell not just hand the ball to Zeus? The dude goes 75 yards to the house in the first half, and y'all quit feeding him the rock. For once, it was in your best interest to play murder ball, and you refused to. Just hand the ball to Zamir. Meanwhile, you're getting destroyed defensively, which I had never seen from a Kirby Smart defense. That was the second best defense in all of college football going into that game. And Trayvon Grimes and Kyle Pitts and Kyle Trask were just destroying, just working you. That was the most yardage ever put up on a Georgia Kirby Smart defense, period. Kirby, calling Carter's defense. If y'all can't believe defense, there is no use for Georgia in this conference because y'all not adding to it offensively, and you keep putting together 4- and 5-star rankings, putting 4- and 5-star classes like number 1 overall classes. Two of the last three national recruiting championships go to Georgia. You ought to be able to win that game with Stetson Bennett at quarterback. You ought to. They weren't. Meanwhile, Dan Mullen's like, now you see me. Now you see me rolling. I also see you with the COVID. Don't catch it again. Otherwise, this is going to be all for naught. I really want to see y'all in the SEC championship game against Mac Jones. 2 Heisman Trophy caliber quarterbacks going against each other. That'd be fun. Number 13, Wisconsin. They were 10 last week. They didn't get to play. Hopefully, they get to play Michigan this week because the idea that Northwestern is going to represent in the Big Ten West against Ohio State, not enthusiastic about that. I also think that, Graham Mertz was actually modernizing the offense. They were slinging the rock. Never seen Wisconsin sling the rock before. I was giddy. Like to see that again. And you need the win against Michigan. You would have liked it more if they were ranked. Golly. Oklahoma State at number 14. Look, played with fire against Kansas State yesterday. Kansas State team, they ain't got a quarterback. Like, you can talk about Will Howard being a quarterback, but I don't think of Will Howard as a quarterback, not yet. 28-18 Kansas State. Okay, Kansas State to beat Oklahoma. I got it. But Oklahoma State controls their own destiny. They get Oklahoma in 2 weeks' time in Norman. That ought to be a great game. You know what Oklahoma's already looking forward to because Iowa State catches an L. They control their own destiny into the Big 12 championship game. Love to get a win over Oklahoma State in the process of doing that. Number 15, Coastal Carolina, 7-0. The last undefeated team in South Carolina. The Chanticleers getting it in. That's who else would get that New Year's Six Bowl before BYU got it. Be the Sun Belt. Not just because the Chanticleers are also undefeated and they play for a conference championship, but because the Sun Belt went 3-0 against the Big 12. Okay? BYU's toughest opponent is Boise State? Nah, dog. That ain't going to get it in. It's not going to get it in. Give the Chanticleers their money. Grayson McCall and them. Give them their money. Marshall at 6-0. Goodness me. Conference USA, another team that would get an invitation to the New Year's Six Bowl before, your BYU, right? Or your Liberty, who we'll get to. Iowa State at 5-2, play with fire against Baylor. Pulled it out late. 5-2, 17. Yeah, number 17 last week. Oklahoma moves up a spot after dropping 62 in back-to-back weeks, this time on Kansas. Kansas was able to close the margin late, making it 62-9 on a late touchdown. But, it's Kansas. Bixby and Owasso High Schools are 2-touchdown favorites against University of Kansas. Poor Jalen Daniels. He was getting destroyed. Sooners tied a school record with 9 sacks in that game. Ramondre Stevenson announced himself. It's got Oklahoma fans who are out of sync, drinking Kool-Aid, talking about Oklahoma be undefeated if Ronnie Perkins and Ramondre Stevenson were eligible from the moment that the Big 12 conference play started. I don't think so. That's not just me. It's the way they lost those games. You didn't lose those games because you couldn't run the football. You didn't lose those games because you didn't have defensive line play. You lost those games because your secondary was getting destroyed. Neither one of those guys play in the secondary. There you go. Number 19, SMU at 7-1. Again, they don't lose to Cincy. We're talking about a New Year's Six Bowl team. Outstanding display from them this year, though, for back-to-back years. Sonny Dykes getting it in. USC at number 20 stands pat. I watched that game. From beginning to end, and I'm looking at Herm Edwards, who must be still wondering today how he lost that game. They had that game won with 3 minutes left to go. Nobody's recovered an onside kick, to my eyes, this year. Friggin' USC recovers an onside kick. It comes down to a game-winning play from Keaton Slovis to Drake London on a 4th down to get the touchdown, a tight window. That game was a microcosm of the Clay Helton experience at USC. That man should have been fired twice already. Hasn't been. He has escaped. That has been his MO, the great escape. They're 1-0, but they played the toughest team on their schedule. so they could walk into the Pac-12 championship game and have an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. That's where we are with USC football. My goodness. Texas, number 21, 5-2. They got to win against the West Virginia team that I think is much better than we thought it might be. They play really great defense up front. Jared Dagey passed for over 300 yards against Chris Ash's defense. They can run the football, though they couldn't do it against Texas with Letty Brown yesterday. I think they got an opportunity to, again, play themselves into the Big 12 championship with the win that they got over Oklahoma State. If Oklahoma can take care of Oklahoma State and Oklahoma State is able to, if Oklahoma takes care of Oklahoma State, we could be looking at OU Texas in the Big 12 championship game. Yeah, that's right. Liberty at number 22, 7-0. The Flames were dead against Vatek. Vatek calls a timeout right before they blocked a field goal. Goodness me. Hugh Freeze and Liberty are already looking at that Mississippi State job that Mike Leach just got, though I thought it would be interesting, again, if that Michigan job becomes available, that Texas job comes available. If Hugh Freeze gets either one of those as a look, might be worth taking a look at. Malik Willis, over 200 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing. Auburn transfer is making them go. Number 23, Northwestern, 3-0 in the Big Ten. Nice to be the sacrificial lamb coming out of the Big Ten West. I don't know what to do exactly with that, right? Because, I don't think Northwestern is a good football team. I don't think they're a bad football team. But the idea that Indiana is not going to be able to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game hurts. Though they get to play them week after next, and we all know how that's probably going to go. But, golly, the Big J journalists that went to Northwestern are having a good time with this, and that's probably what's making me so mad. Auburn at 4-2, number 24, sure. They'll catch another 2 losses, at least one against Alabama, and that'll be that. Number 25, Louisiana Lafayette at 6-1. Again, the Sun Belt representing. Others receiving votes. North Carolina at 85, stomped a mud hole in Duke. Army got 54. Tulsa got 47. Tulsa is a Cincinnati win away from being quite literally good, although I don't think that they're good. I hope they play that game against Cincinnati. I really want to see it. And in that Monique way, I would like to see it. Because even as a TU alum, I'm looking at this team going, nah, man. Y'all should have lost that game to East Carolina. You've had games that you wanted to play, get postponed, rescheduled. I get all of that. And you haven't had an opportunity to show that you're not actually that good except against Oklahoma State. An Oklahoma State team that until last week was number 6 in the country. We'll see. Utah getting 33 points. Washington getting 21. Arizona State getting 11. Purdue getting 8. Wake Forest getting 6. Boise State getting 5. Appalachia State getting 5. California getting 3. Maryland getting 3. Nevada getting 1. Nevada needs more respect. They're undefeated. They're 3-0. Give them their props. Maryland needs more respect. They beat Penn State and Minnesota in back-to-back weeks. I understand Penn State and Minnesota ain't that good, particularly Penn State. But neither is Maryland, right? Right? Taulia Tagovailoa out there just cooking people. Jake Funk out there just running on people. Raheem Jarrett out there getting it in, right? Demas out there getting it in. I feel like we got to start talking about them in a real way. I'm not kidding. I don't know why Cal got votes. They got a game postponed. What? Washington too. What are we doing there? Anyway, that's the top 25. Now that I have quite literally redone it, and I thought this was going for 20 minutes. I'm gonna put this in the podcast. That was also a thing that I wanted to get. Oh, let me see. Alakazam with the super chat, and then I'll tell you about what I'm thinking about the channel, how some things might change. The loss hurt last night, but we beat ND all the time, so we will bounce back. Fumbles hurt us. I'm shocked we are number 4. Obviously, he is a Clemson fan. I'm not shocked that you're number 4. It's a good football team. So one of the things that I wanted to get to, that I thought I got to when I was recording but wasn't, or streaming but wasn't, is I think I'm going to start doing this more often, where we sit here and we talk with each other for maybe half an hour every day, as opposed to making 4 uploads a day, because I understand that there's not a whole bunch of people that really enjoy the replays, and I understand that we all hate titles, because I want to take this moment to actually talk about that. YouTube is a search engine, and the way that it categorizes is using the headline, and the way that it alerts you, for those of you that, see some notifications but don't, is it connects you to the things that it thinks you want to watch, right? And I get that this channel has become way more than what it started out being, right? It's become so much about college football and sports as opposed to just being about Oklahoma football. So much so that I get OU fans that are going to talk more about Oklahoma. And I get everybody else telling me all this dude does is talk about Oklahoma. So I think I'm doing it right. But I think if we start doing this, kind of like with the podcast, and you can go download the podcast, The RJ Young Show, wherever it is you get your podcast, and listen to it over there if you don't have time to get here. But the reason I want to do the streams is to interact with the chat whenever it's there. And like on days like today, when I know that all we want to do is talk about the goings-on Saturday, I thought this would be a good place to do that. So I'm going to take a question, then I want to kind of go through the conference recaps, see what we're doing it. Let's see. See what we got in here. I'm trying to scroll up because I know that folks have been putting stuff in here. Make sure I take a look at what y'all are saying. Sometimes y'all have really good questions. Sometimes not. Them's the breaks. Let's see. What happened to Penn State this season? They returned Clifford. Their receiver, number 5, you're talking about Jahan Dotson, is solid, and they have a coaching continuity. They lost 2 tailbacks, right? Journey Brown, Noah Cain. Noah Cain injury, we're not sure about Journey Brown, but Devin Ford's the only dude that they trusted. They also lost KJ Hamler, even though Jahan Dotson is good. They lost Justin Shorter to Florida for transfer. And they lost a ton on the defensive line, right? Although Pratt Fryermuth is still there and probably their best pass catcher. I think it's about recruiting with Penn State. And when we look at Penn State, one of the things I want you to take account is that they had a Justin Fields committed there for a hot second, that they were in the running for Caleb Williams this year. And then look at the state of Pennsylvania 2021 247 sports composite rankings. You'll see that none of the top 10 players in the state are committed to Penn State. That is absolutely wild, especially because Penn State or Pennsylvania puts out outstanding football players, right? It ain't like Kansas. Not to shade Kansas, but y'all put out like 1 or 2 every year, right? Penn State puts out 10 to 12. And that way it's kind of like Jersey. Like Jersey's such an underrated football state. They keep pumping out dudes, right? I mean, Saquon Barkley, Minkah Fitzpatrick, I can keep going. But that's the way that we view Penn State. James Franklin was brought there because he could recruit. And he hadn't been doing that. And I don't care how good your coaching continuity is, even though, you know, he has a new offensive coordinator. He stole the dude from Minnesota, Kirk Saraga. You're not going to be that good if you don't have better players. So, yeah, you're going to get stomped on if you don't have the players to go. Because take a look at Army or Air Force or Navy. They have good coaches. They have great coaching continuity. They ain't got the dudes, right? Like, that's what it is. They're a service academy. That's why they run Flexbone. It's also why Paul Johnson's Flexbone didn't work at Georgia Tech. He didn't have the dudes. When he had Megatron out there, they threw him the ball. That was their dude, right? You got to have dudes to win. They don't have dudes. Let me take a look. So one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was these conference recaps, and kind of want to take a look at those. So let's take a look at those. And I think when we do these one shows, right? And I might still break these up. Like I said, I'm still playing with this format, seeing what we might do. I might get to a place where I just put up the one show a day and don't break them up into smaller recaps for folks to find what they want. But like when we do like the conference recaps, I know that there are people that don't care about anything but SEC football, right? And there are people that don't care about anything but Big 12 football or casually think that they care about the Pac-12, right? It's difficult to try to be all things to all people. So I try to pick out the stuff that I think most people want to hear about. But then again, I'm also the guy on national radio last night telling everybody to pay attention to Liberty, to pay attention to BYU, to pay attention to Cincy. Not because they're going to make the college football playoff, because they're not, but because I want them to have opportunities to play for titles that matter. Like, I'm not going to get off of we need to expand the playoff. I believe in that. I think that every single kid should be able to look at the scoreboard and know whether or not he's good. I don't think it should be left to a bunch of people that get to vote on who they think is good. If you have 24 teams in the playoff, or 25 top 25 teams, right? Then you get everybody in that should be in, right? If that means that you have an 8-5 or a 7-5 caliber football team in the playoff, good. Because that's what the NCAA tournament is, and that's why we love it. I'll bet none of y'all are really Northern Iowa fans, but you all know Ali Farokhmanesh. You all remember Wichita State beating Kansas in the tournament. You also remember that it's going to be Duke. It's going to be Michigan State. It's going to be Kansas there at the end. That's what it's going to be. Doesn't make the tournament any less valuable, and it doesn't water it down. I don't understand why there's so many college football fans that don't see that or refuse to see that. It bothers me. That's why I'm the dude that's crowing about Liberty's playing some good football. BYU's playing some good football, even as I understand they're not going to make the playoff because their schedule sucks. But your schedule should not dictate whether or not you get to play for a national championship. Only thing you should dictate about your schedule is, did you win more games than you lost? Straight up. That's what it is. All right. How long have we been going? I wanted to drop this at like 30 minutes. So we might actually do the conference recaps tomorrow. Yeah. See what we got. Shout out Doc Winston O'Boogie, man. Dude stays in here keeping everything correct. I appreciate it. Let me see. Jamie Kephart. How come there's not much love for Sam Ehlinger, man? Feel like it would be a different story if he was at OU. I don't think so. I mean, he's a good leader. He's a great dude. He ain't a great quarterback. Like, that's what it is. At Oklahoma, it's quarterback play. You pass for 3,800. You pass for 4,000. You win Heisman trophies. That's what you do. I don't even think Sam Ehlinger is on the same plane as Jason White. Well, Jason White was, Jason White's an all-timer. That's a bad example. Landry Jones. Not on the same plane as Landry Jones. Landry Jones, at the very least, got near a national championship. He set a record for passing yards by a true freshman. He's got, basically every statistical category at Oklahoma locked up in passing. And nobody here is going to tell you that he's the best quarterback to come through Oklahoma, right? You're going to say that he's underrated. It's because Sam Ehlinger is pumped up too much. That's why. We don't respect that. Did he beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game? No. Has he played in a playoff game? No. He won a Sugar Bowl against a Georgia team that they swear was disinterested, but, they beat them. And they went 10-4 that year. That's like an 8-4 season. That's not good. They went 8-5 last year. Oklahoma hasn't gone 8-5 in like 6 years. You win 10 games at Oklahoma. That's what you do, right? You win 12 games at Oklahoma. That's what you do. Lincoln Riley started the first 3 years of his career 12-2 with 3 different quarterbacks, which means that every single one of those quarterbacks won at least 12 games, right? That's what it is. Exactly 12 games, as a matter of fact. When Sam Ehlinger is doing that, then we'll talk about Sam Ehlinger like that. DG Rabbit Rebel. Liberty is still basically a brand new football team. Do you see them joining a conference anytime soon? If so, which one? No, I don't. I think they enjoy being an independent. I think they enjoy being the evangelical BYU. And I don't see anybody really wanting to open their arms to Liberty joining their conference, because what is Liberty actually going to provide you? What kind of television market do they give you in Virginia, in Lynchburg? Not a whole lot. Virginia and Vatech got that locked up. No, I don't see it. Let's see. The Goodfellas. So you're saying if even Auburn and Cincinnati's schedule, they wouldn't blow out teams out too? Auburn is no contender. Auburn has the losses. Let Cincinnati catch the losses. That's what I'm saying, right? Like, Cincinnati would weed themselves out if they were able to play that Auburn schedule, but they're not. All right? So Auburn chooses to play in the SEC. They play an SEC conference schedule. I don't think that your schedule is supposed to be the predictor of whether or not you're a championship football team. I think wins and losses should do that. That's the point here, right? I'm saying take it all off of strength of schedule. We all want to see good teams play good teams. Like, that's why they have the battle for Atlantis in the NCAA basketball, men's basketball. That's why we have those really cool Big 12 SEC challenges, because we love to see that stuff. But we also know that schedules are going to be lopsided. Conferences are going to be lopsided from year to year. That's why we have a 68-team tournament, right? Why not have a 24-team tournament in what we call the college football playoff? See what else got in here. I mean, Central Florida is a huge school. What's your point? Dude says Liberty is a huge school. Maybe even they have that. No, Central Florida is a huge school. Ain't nobody letting Central Florida into their Power 5 conference. Let's see. Who the hell is Clemens? Oh, he's this dude out here talking about it. Let me see. Ian Book is actually like 6'3" and like 230. Ian Book can play. Let's see. A lot of y'all are elitist about this, man. UGA or Walmart. Oh, goodness. All right. So I'm going to put this up on the RJ Young Show podcast for tomorrow. As I said, I think I'm going to start trying to do more like this, and we'll just see where these things fall. Because YouTube is a search engine, because it's a headline, I apologize if you don't feel like the headlines are always for you. But I try to put up as much as I can, and I try to talk through this stuff as much as I can because I think it's fun. And I want people to consume my stuff. All right. I think I'm going to do the recap videos individual for each conference because the more I was thinking about that while I was doing it, the less it felt like it was going to be a good use of your time or mine. All right. If you like the channel, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will keep you abreast as I continue to change up and see where it's going. Shout out to us for going over 56,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel just last night. Very excited about that. And I'll talk to you guys probably in a few hours. Deuces.